Could I Guess It clip. This is tier 1, top tier, prime, perfect fucking hosting from one Danny Jones. Let's let this play.
That evidence, we got a bunch of emails and stuff, and there was lots of redactions. They said they were only going to redact the victims, but they redacted way more than just the victims.
Cool.
But Danny loves touching the fucking boiling coffee until his finger burns a little bit. He loves getting down in the nitty gritty with things, and he does some podcasts sometimes that I'm like, I can't believe you did that one. But he's got a serious set of balls on him. And so he had in this guy Juval Aviv, which actually we've talked about this before, but when we designed this studio, the theme was New York City. So do we have camera 5 on?
Cut this in.
Yeah, you can cut that in as well. But we have on the wall back here, and it's funny because this wall actually faces the Hudson River, so it faces Manhattan. But we have on the wall the New York City skyline, and that was like thematically what we were trying to do. So over here on the wall, there's these beautiful shots at the end of the movie Munich, made in 2005 by Spielberg, where Eric Bana and Jeffrey Rush's characters are standing on the Brooklyn side looking at the East River in 1970s New York with New York on the skyline. So we have a double shot of that moment in the film. And I say this because Yuval Aviv is alleged to be Eric Bana in that movie. So a little bit of a, whoa, there it is. If you've never seen the movie Munich, it is a great movie, I do have to say, and it is based on true events. I think the opening scene says this is fictionalized or something. It's not. If you look at the history, read the book Rising Gill First by Ronan Bergman, and you'll understand that this movie, which is about, what is it, Operation Midnight Hammer, I think it was called. Can you double check that, Deef? But this film that they made in 2005 is about the events of
Operation Wrath of God.
Operation Wrath of God. I'm sorry. Midnight Hammer was the Iran war thing, right? That was definitely, that was like last summer.
Yeah. Right? That was one
Operation
of the new ones.
Wrath of God.
Yeah.
But it is about the Israel's response to the 1972 terrorist attack at the Olympics, where Black September members associated with the Palestinian PLO kidnapped and then killed the Israeli athletes. I want to say it was like 9 athletes. I think it was 9 athletes that they killed at the time of the hostages. And so those games were in Munich, Germany, and as a result, Golda Meir, who was the prime minister at the time, allegedly authorized a Mossad assassin kill squad to go find all the organizers from Black September who were responsible for this and kill them, regardless of where they were. Allegedly, at the time, this is what they report, Mossad had a policy of not assassinating people in Europe and in ally countries. Not so sure if I believe that, but they did waive that, allegedly, for this mission. And so back in the 80s, a book comes out called Vengeance. And it's written, I can't remember if he did it under a pen name at the time, but it's an author, a writer who wrote it with Yuval Aviv, who may have been still under a pen name.
George Jones.
Right. Okay. Was that the pen name? Or was that the other writer?
No, that's just, it just says it's by George Jonas.
George Jonas.
No, yeah, he's a real guy, so he probably wrote it alongside him.
Right. So he writes this book where he describes this mission and what he did over a 3-year period. The book ends up becoming the movie Munich. There's a lot of controversy about Yuval Aviv, where he's been denied over the years. Mossad was like he was a janitor, didn't work for us, things like that. I don't think that's the case, because the book gets the details of what really happened on these various hits that they did in places like Rome, Paris, Lebanon. It seems to get them very accurately. And he wrote this back in the 80s. And so Yuval Aviv came when he was done that mission, moved to America, to New York, and actually, and this is shown in the movie Munich, ran into problems where the Israelis were trying to get him back, and they were, you know, they were watching his daughter when she would leave the apartment and stuff, and he flipped out about that. And so, you know, they obviously, I don't remember what it was, but they came to some sort of understand. I do remember what it was now, but they came to, it's covered in Danny's podcast. They came to some sort of understanding, and then allegedly they stopped bothering him. And then he took he started a private detective company in America and started taking some serious contracts globally, but particularly for working with the United States government, which was part of the vetting process that Steven Spielberg did when he went to make the movie about whether or not Juval Aviv was real. He was able to, I believe, get access to like government documents that show Yuval Aviv's affiliation with United States intelligence on like a contract basis, and listed as Israeli intelligence in doing that. So cue the comments on this one. Obviously, there's a lot going on there. But Danny Jones does this explosive podcast with Yuval. And I called Danny afterwards, and I said, Danny, your second podcast with Yuval was absolutely amazing. It was early in the morning, so it took him a minute. He's like, what? I only do one pod. What are you talking about? I said, no. You did 2 podcasts. I said, the first one sucked. He's like, what are you talking about? And I said, Danny, you covered the entire Operation Wrath of God in like the first 10 minutes. And then had this amazing podcast on all the other stuff. You should have spent 3.5 hours on that to get him, I don't know, catch him in a lie, do something. You know, but he's like, I didn't really want to talk about it. So hopefully Danny Jones gets Yuval back in there, and they can really give that one a right and proper podcast on the actual Wrath of God mission and all the guys they went to kill. But the rest of the podcast went through a lot of the work that Yuval's done in his career with, what's the name of that company on his Wikipedia again? Infosec or something? It's his private investigation. Interfer International. And, you know, I think it's probably a mixed bag. I think there's some places where he talks a big game and doesn't have the receipts. Maybe some other places where he really does have receipts and really did do things. I had looked into this guy actually like years ago, because the movie Munich I think is a great movie, and I was just always curious about that backstory. And I do think he was on that team. Open to being wrong about that, but I do think he was on that Mossad team for sure. And then you look at like some of the work he did, and I already mentioned some affiliated with the United States government in the years after when that mission would have been. It would suggest this is someone who knows his way around and knows how to do some things. But Danny Jones, of course, broached the topic at hand of Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein files. And Yuval was willing to talk about this to some extent. I'm trying to think, because I talked with Danny off air, obviously, about this. So I don't want to say some of the other stuff. But what you saw on air was Yuval addressing some of this. And I want to start with the could I guess it clip. Mm-hmm. This is tier 1, top tier, prime, perfect fucking hosting from one Danny Jones. Let's let this play.
That evidence, you know, we got a bunch of emails and stuff, and there was lots of redactions. They said they were only going to redact the victims, but they redacted way more than just the victims. Cool. They redacted like big names of like sheiks and oil executives and all.
Yes.
It's very interesting the people that they didn't redact and the people they did redact, if you really like read between the lines and look at it. But
of course.
Like, that's not the real evidence. The real evidence is on the hard drives, because there's survivors, there's girls that were there that testified that he had rooms as big as this room right now that were filled with servers and computers and monitors that were recording all that footage that he had, not only on the island, but in New York, the Zora Ranch, everywhere.
On a plane,
camera.
The plane was
He's adding to it.
And everywhere.
Where's all that footage?
I can't tell you.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at
Can I guess?
No, please don't. Not now. Don't guess now. So that's why I said the days.
Let me ask you this.
The day it will come out is important. It has to be the right time, the right day.
Let me ask you this. I'm sorry to put a legendary Mossad assassin on the hot seat. But if I was to guess, do you think I would guess right?
Probably. That's why we shouldn't talk about it right now.
All right. That's all. Yeah.
That's a wild clip, bro. That's a wild clip. Now, devil's advocate, we could be sitting here at home going, that guy, he's just trying to act like he knows something he doesn't. But like the way, and again, I know some context here also off air, which I'm not saying, but like the way that he chained up on that and was like simultaneously friendly about it, but then also curt, like, let's move on this, you know, but then, ooh, God, I don't even know how to talk about that one. That just was wild to me. I want to hear what you guys think of that down below. Because obviously, and this is a very fair question, whenever you see any of these spooky people on podcasts, I've talked about it on my own podcast before with guys like Bustamante have been on here, even Kiriakou and stuff like that. You always have to ask the question, why the fuck are they on a podcast? Now, Kiriakou I've always viewed as different because he's a full-blown dissident and they threw him in prison. And some people still speculate, hey, once CIA, always CIA. I genuinely don't think he is at all. John's great. It would break my heart if he was, because like John is fucking electric and is very brave for some of the shit he says. Whereas like Andy, another friend of mine, I've always thought Andy Bustamante is still with CIA. In fact, I've said this before. I think Andy, if he took a polygraph and you asked him, and let's say he doesn't know how to cheat on a polygraph, okay? If he took a polygraph without knowing how to cheat and you asked him, do you still work for CIA? I think he would be able to say no and pass. And you say, well, why is that? Because I think it's a semantics question. Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.